Hello, this is Tara Rios. This is my Collaborate video on East Asian economies. This is due to the fact that I missed this week again for the Collaborate session, which kind of stinks because I wish I could be more involved, but I'm going to give you my takeaways and kind of the impression I got throughout this chapter and just kind of relations through personal experience, through what I've seen, kind of my views back and forth on what I've learned, and kind of the back knowledge I've already had on it. So looking at this, first thing you kind of look into is what are the East Asian countries that kind of go in with this. So there's China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, North Korea, and Japan. We're looking at these huge economies. It's kind of just interesting to see how they've been successful, how they haven't, gross domestic product, religion aspects, political aspects, and obviously in the United States we hear a lot about it just because of all the economic stuff, all the business related stuff, and kind of the war related stuff, unfortunately. But over time, it's kind of interesting to see how they've evolved and how we've evolved and if there's any actual relation. So when it comes to like the relationship between the United States and East Asian economies, it was kind of interesting to see since people like to think that in the United States we are more hierarchical, which I absolutely believe with, as we want to think we're more egalitarian, but it kind of goes either way depending on the type of person, type of business, type of economy that we're in, and which state that kind of goes back and forth with. When looking at this, as we've talked in other chapters, people perceive us as more that hierarchical type. Like we want power, we want to know we're in charge, we have more of a masculine economy as much as we want to think that it's kind of evened out, which it has, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's kind of like in the East Asian economies, it's also the fact that they are more that higher power distance, like as Hofstede said, which it's related back and forth, and it kind of shows these different numbers and how we can relate either way to it. And then when it comes to like religion and different spiritual aspects, in the United States, we obviously have every sort of religion possible, but it's just because we're so diverse, people come here all the time, they want a new chance, and they bring along different cultural aspects, different religion, and it's kind of just built on. And we see different churches, mosques, you name it, everywhere, which is awesome because you can learn through different aspects of lives, through what people are going through, different types of religion. Whereas in East Asian economies, we kind of see more of the Taoism and Buddhism, which it makes sense. I mean, that's primarily what's based around there and kind of what goes along with, especially in China, with the Confucian culture, which is not a religion-based type thing, but it's more like the ideology that they have and the law type thing where they kind of build together on that. And there's kind of a main focus as to how the people, especially in China, like run their society and how they have actually been so successful, which we've seen, especially on page, I have it right here, on page 198, where it's showing the top firms like in Forbes, which is predominant, and this is of 2008. But in China, they have 25 firms on like Forbes, top global 500 list, which is absolutely crazy to look at. But it's kind of a new perspective that they have been absolutely successful. But when looking at the background aspect on how they've been so successful is interesting because they are definitely much more of a masculine-based society in East Asian economies, which we've talked about a little bit. But they're more individualistic, self-centered, competitive than the masculine. And then this can relate with the United States just because that's kind of how we see things. We're definitely perceived as more self-centered people, very individualistic, like want to take charge. Like it's more about us and then building out society and like working with our economy and wanting to build, especially as like managers, is we kind of take pride in more like our individual status, wanting to have higher education, like it says in East Asian culture, they're very predominantly based in learning and wanting to build on that, and that's why they have been also very successful. And then another aspect that kind of relates with that is they have like very strong-willed authoritarian leaders, if I can get the word out. But not saying that that's how our society is, but they're very strong-willed, wanting to be powerful. And as we've seen, especially with the recent election, we've seen how politics is based, how leaders want to act, and that pushing forward and wanting to be successful in all aspects, that's the political side. That's kind of how societies run, how our businesses have run if they're American based. But as we've noted, like and from personal experience too, my dad's worked for Japanese companies, worked with Chinese, and from knowing and meeting Japanese workers, owners, bosses, and trying to work with American economies, it can definitely be very, very different. But it's unique, interesting, and kind of okay, like what else can we learn from them and what can they learn from us? Because we kind of, as much as we're very, very kind of different societies and different language, different type of religion, you name it, we have that same strong-willed environment that we want to do and be successful in. There's definitely some, I mean, they're the very like cautious type that they want to be very strong-willed, straightforward, to the point. In the United States, we try and be that way, well, most of the time at least, especially from a management aspect. And I know I'm the type of person that rather just be straightforward and not sugarcoat things. So it's kind of interesting to see. But when I look at this from the political side, obviously we've had our differences, as we've seen in recent news as well. But this is something we'll constantly have to deal with. And even if there is faulty from a political aspect, there can always be a way to combine from a business aspect and be successful in joining forces, because we kind of do have that same approach to business and want to be direct, want to be successful. And obviously our different type of companies from East Asia and the United States are top, Forbes Global 500 companies all around the world. And even though we have some completely different aspects and culture and stuff, we definitely are more focused on education, wanting to be successful, having that money aspect, and working with other countries to build on that and be successful and broaden their aspect and build onto their business. I mean, from this, there's a lot of things that we kind of do know about. Even from the political side, there's always that stuff that we've seen already in past history and what their economy's done, especially like after they noted, especially in World War II. Obviously, our economies kind of clashed quite a bit, and we had to build off that. And now it's kind of crazy to see that we can work together and build on through that, even though there was something that happened like World War II and Japan, United States, you name it, everything going on with that as well. Like Pearl Harbor is something we think about. But if we can get past that, that is something we can constantly build on. It's definitely interesting to see that we had a lot more relatable with East Asian economies, because we like to think that we're so different. And just because we may seem different, like to think the United States is so diverse and so unique, there's definitely more similarities than we may think. And that's something I kind of want to look more into as well, and just kind of build off everything we've learned already throughout the semester. But I mean, these are some of the takeaways that I had, and it's kind of just some other feedback, which I'll probably know in discussion and any other things we've had, just because East Asian economy is definitely unique, growing. Their gross domestic product is unreal. They have some of the top tier companies. But what's interesting too is several of these East Asian cultures, that several of their students do come to the United States to learn from us as we go over there and do different studies, just because I feel like we can learn a lot from each other, just because we have kind of like that same impression and want to be successful and very strong-willed, straightforward. But yeah, these are definitely my takeaways. Thank you.